Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
You know those ads you're running against me and my family are lies.
The candidates for governor face off, attacking each other and the man whose job they're trying to take.
When you have this kind of an extreme event, the impacts are far-reaching.
The state's seafood industry reeling in the wake of record floods.
She told me some things about her classroom that I found disturbing.
Why a retired teacher decided she needs to go back to work as a policymaker. Hi everyone, I'm Natasha Williams.
And I'm Andre Morrow. Much more on those top stories in a moment on this week's edition of SWI. But first, a major win for coastal parishes in a lawsuit against Big Oil that claims aggressive drilling damaged our coast.
Freeport-McMoran says they'll pay up to $100 million toward restoration in this first settlement that could lead to many others.
It sure could. Now let's check out other news making headlines across Louisiana.
LSU is beaming about a second straight record-breaking size freshman class, 6,126 enrolled this fall. LSU calls it the largest, most diverse, most academically talented ever. Overall, the Baton Rouge campus enrollment is just shy of 32,000. And there's one more record. For the first time ever, enrollment at all LSU campuses statewide exceeds 50,000 students. A group of LSU students will immerse themselves into presidential campaigning before the first-in-the-nation caucuses in Iowa. The Manship School of Mass Communication will send a small delegation to the caucuses for 10 days as part of the Iowa of the Tiger program. They'll attend dozens of presidential campaigning events across that state ahead of the February 3rd caucuses. The students attending will pay their own way. An update on the development by LSU researchers of bendable concrete. It's a story we first brought you earlier this year. Sugarcane byproducts, the fibrous waste following juice extraction, that's now been thrown into the testing mix, and so far the results are promising. The construction researchers are working to create a concrete that is stronger and more forgiving. With a projected surplus of $500 million, the state's rainy day fund will get a nice $125 million bump in its deposits. But the fund is still not as large as it once was after years of depleting it to fill other budget gaps. As other states rebuilt reserves since the last recession, we pinballed from one self-created crisis to another until the legislature agreed to Governor John Bel Edwards' 7-year tax deal in 2018. Shreveport's nationally historic municipal auditorium, location of the famed Louisiana Hayride, is getting into the Halloween spirit again during the month of October, hosting 5 paranormal-themed guided tours. Ghost hunting teams from the Discovery and Sci-Fi networks have investigated the auditorium for years, and in certain circles, it's thought to be one of the most haunted buildings in North Louisiana. It first opened its doors in 1929. Many believe this photo from 2012 captures the image of a ghost. Can you see it?
Time to talk elections, and it got personal. It got downright nasty at times. Thursday night's governor's debate from the campus of UL Lafayette saw the candidates really separating who they are and what they stand for.
LPB was one of the hosts, broadcasting it live statewide.
I want to ask him to explain to me why you released a statement where you said that Donald Trump should drop out of the race against Hillary Clinton 3 weeks before the election.
Eddie, I'm glad you're eye to eye, man to man.
Right.
Now look, I know that your consultants out of state have told you that you have to attack me and my family in order to win. But you know those ads you're running against me and my family are lies. I don't vote with Pelosi. Those bills support our troops, they support our police, and they support our businessmen. I am the most conservative congressman that you will ever see. You know that the target that we should be working on is the one standing to your left. But when you stand up here and tell blatant lies to the good people of Louisiana, you're the politician.
The candidates questioned each other on principle, policy, and loyalty. Baton Rouge businessman Eddie Rispone going after both opponents in support of President Trump.
We have one here that was a superdelegate to Hillary Clinton, and we got one here that's asking Donald Trump and saying he should drop out of the race against Hillary Clinton. Can you imagine where we'd be today if Hillary Clinton was our president? That's the point I'm trying to make.
Can I respond to that?
No, you can't.
Congressman Ralph Abraham taking on the governor.
Not only did your Department of Health send a sexually explicit questionnaire to very young children, but your two appointed BESE board members voted to allow a teacher into a Louisiana classroom who had just lost his teaching certificate in Georgia for sending sexually inappropriate text messages to a minor. The question to you, Governor, why haven't you called for their resignations, and how can parents trust you to ensure that their children are safe in Louisiana classrooms?
Because the people of Louisiana know me, Senator. I'm sorry, Congressman. That's why. They know that I have a long history of public service dating back to when I was 17 years old and went to West Point. And they know that I will get up and work hard every single day to move our state forward and to make sure that everyone is safe. And if you go out and you talk to people of Louisiana, they will confirm what I just told you. That is their appreciation of me, and it is accurate because of the work that I have put in over the course of my life.
Reporters pressing businessman Eddie Rispone about his claims of sanctuary cities in Louisiana.
You've made immigration of undocumented workers and related issues like sanctuary cities a key platform. President Trump's administration has said Louisiana doesn't have any sanctuary cities. Our undocumented worker population is estimated to be less than 2%. So what specific incidents have you observed that lead you to believe it's a crisis in Louisiana?
But let me say this. We have a sanctuary city in New Orleans. Anytime you have a city that funds a protest against ICE, this agency, the people that we hire to protect us, our citizens, and to put criminals aside that break our law, that's a sanctuary city in my mind, and that's a sanctuary city in everyone's mind. So let's clear that up right off the bat. But now, what I'm going to tell you is that I'm going to support our president when it comes to building a wall, doing away with sanctuary cities, and going after these gangs.
The sparring continuing with different viewpoints on the economy and what to do to keep and bring young Louisianans home to work and live.
Louisiana is the only state losing jobs. We're the only state in the country losing jobs. And I'm going to turn that around and make it happen. We should be the #1 state in the South when it comes to jobs and opportunities, and I'm going to do that for our future generations, for our children and grandchildren can stay here and be proud to call Louisiana home.
You know, you're entitled to your opinion, but not to your own facts. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis and the Department of Labor, we are gaining jobs every year right now. In fact, our unemployment rate is 4.3%, a 12-year low. The key is education and training.
That from the campus of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Great crowd, great host for us. They did a wonderful job. From that debate, though, we take you back a few days now to Monday's Baton Rouge Press Club.
The candidates weren't buddy-buddy, but they were not in attack mode.
We just made new investments in education for the first time in a decade. That is going to continue because our economy is going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to create jobs in the state of Louisiana, more opportunity and more prosperity. The #1 new priority for investment in education in a second term will be early childhood education.
Look, as the governor, we're going to reverse the ITEP changes. We're going to get businesses back to hire, to just stay, to build what businesses do. We will revamp the waste, fraud, and abuse in our Medicaid expansion. And day one, I'll call a special session to address infrastructure, taxes, and budget reform.
The day after I'm elected, I'm going to work. And I'm going to go to work, and like I said earlier, I'm going to contact all the oil and gas people in manufacturing since come back to Louisiana, stay here, we're going to work with you. Then I'm going to let all these parishes know that we're ready to go to work. But the other thing is I'm going to go out and recruit good, talented people. That's what business people do.
And the beat will go on until the October 12th elections and perhaps beyond. This election season, 3 nonprofits created a roadmap they say can guide our state to a better future. It's called Reset Louisiana's Future.
Council for Better Louisiana, Public Affairs Research Council, and the Committee of 100 says Reset forces politicians to address real issues. This month's Louisiana Public Square examines the proposals on resetting Louisiana.
We need to make some differences in the 4 areas that have been outlined, from transportation to fiscal reform to education and, of course, in public safety. So our mission here is to work with our partners in this coalition and work with the new people who are coming into office, work with the incumbents who are coming into office to make sure that they understand that this is what we want. This is what the people want. We've got too many good things going on in the state to be ranked so low all the time.
I would love to see a centralized sales tax where that means the exemptions for the state and the locals are the same. We have the same tax base.
How about uniform?
Uniform tax.
Right.
And that's what we would like. However, to get there is going to take a lot of work, as you know. And also, it's not going to be done overnight. It's going to take us 3, 4, 5, 6 years to do it well. Because once we start changing things, we affect people we really don't know we're affecting. Some may be better off. Some local governments may get a little extra money. Some may lose.
I think as you've seen the fiscal outlook improve in the last couple of years, there has been bipartisan support to fund higher education and the needs that we have. And so I'm optimistic about that. I think what you see more often in the legislature is they're looking for better outcomes at the same time. They're looking for higher graduation rates, higher retention rates, for kids to graduate with credentials where they can go to a job right away. And what I'm really encouraged about is to see the Board of Regents and others really taking the lead, our community college system, trying some very innovative things that people are talking about around the country to try to get people that are out of work back into the classroom, get a skill, get a credential, get a degree that's going to put those folks to work. So I think we have a lot to be optimistic about.
Again, as I had mentioned earlier, it was 1984 when 16 cents was passed to fund our roads and bridges, and here we are, 2019, and we're at 16 cents, which basically buys us 6 cents. And we have 39,000 lane miles of highways in our state, and we're trying to maintain it with 6 cents. This year alone, 37 bridges are closed. We have bridges closed from last year and the year before. There's no money to open them.
And it's not just bridges closed. A lot of bridges, they reduce the amount of weight you could put on them. So effectively speaking, for some businesses, those bridges are closed.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're right. The load capacity has been decreased to where mainly farmers' school buses. Our children, especially in rural areas, these school buses have to go an hour out of their way, going to school and coming back. And do you want your child on that school bus the next time that bridge does fail? Because we have had bridges fail this year with equipment passing it.
Resetting Louisiana re-airs this Sunday at 10 a.m. on LPB. You can also view the Reset agenda and entire program online on lpb.org/public square. The Louisiana Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, or BESE, is an elected agency of Louisiana state government. They're responsible for creating and implementing policies for the state's public schools. There's a crowded field running for a seat on BESE this year, and some say the state superintendent and many of the current failing policies and practices have to go. Veteran teacher Timmy Melanson has been retired for a few years, but she says an Easter Sunday conversation she had with her granddaughter, a first-year teacher, helped her decide she needed to get involved.
She told me some things about her classroom that I found disturbing, things that had changed in the 5 years that I was teaching, since I'd been teaching.
She says she started researching, and what she learned was even worse.
So I thought, there's a lot of things going on that I don't agree with, that I find incorrect. And so my mother always taught me, if you're going to see a wrong and you don't stand up and say something about it, then you're just as responsible for that wrong.
Moloson is taking on District 7 incumbent Holly Bofi of Youngsville and says one of the first things she plans to tackle if elected is testing.
There's way too much assessment going on. I've spoken to probably 9 administrators, 4 superintendents, who all agree that 6 weeks of testing a school year is extreme. I think that has taken a lot of the joy out of the classrooms.
Lee Price Barrios, another longtime educator from St. Tammany Parish, has decided to throw her hat in the ring. Barrios, who after retirement continued to work with her local school board, is disappointed with many of the reforms implemented that she says simply aren't working.
Creativity is where education moves forward. There is nothing about our standardization regime that we have now and testing that stimulates curiosity or allows the room for children to ask those questions, to make mistakes.
Price Barrios says it's not the children that are failing, it's the policies and practices that have been adopted.
People will often say, oh, you want to go backwards. And my response to that is, if you're on the road and you take a wrong turn, sometimes you have to go back and find the right direction.
She says some things should be eliminated immediately, among them the high-stakes element of testing and standardized curriculums. And Price Barrios is among those who believe new leadership is needed at the top.
The first thing we need to do is advertise for a new superintendent who's actually qualified.
The call for the removal of John White is on the agenda of 2 of the 3 candidates running for BESE District 1, Lee Price Barrios and former teacher and coach Marin Benura of Metairie. James Garvey, an attorney also from Metairie, supports Superintendent White, who has been working on a month-to-month contract for more than 3 years.
All our reforms that we've tried, all the policies that John White and Mr. Garvey have put in have not worked. I believe that I can do a better job. I've been an educator most of my life, 50 years of coaching, 21 years in the classroom. My family's all educators. My 2 sons, my daughter, and myself, between the 4 of us, we have 90 years experience in education. And I look at Louisiana being ranked 48th in the last 12 years, and it's just time for a change.
Benura says there's too much chaos in the current state curriculum.
Every year we change it. To be honest with you, we need consistency. If we would have started 12 years ago with a solid program, right now we would see the results. But hit and miss, chaos, changing the curriculum every 2 years or every year has caused us to be 48th in the nation.
Benura also supports more early childhood education, and
we need to return education to the local level. One size fits all does not work. What happens in New Orleans does not happen in Shreveport. What happens in Lafayette does not happen in Alexandria. We all have a different culture, we all have different demographics, and we all know what our children need.
His opponent, who was first elected to BESE in 2007, James Garvey, disagrees with the candidates that say most of the policies they're using now should be scrapped. He says recent stats bear out improvements are being made.
30–40% improvements in some statistical areas, such as our ACT scores, our college enrollment rates of our seniors, 100% and up on some of our statistics like advanced placement, college credit achievement, career and tech certifications, and then some statistics in the 400%, 500%, and 600% on things like CLEP testing for college credit by our seniors.
Garvey says he's running to continue the steady improvement and growth in some areas that is getting national attention.
We've made these gains, and as I mentioned, there's efforts to dismantle them, and I would like to see them continue. They're heading in the right direction. We've seen improvements every single year in the past 6 years. There's no indication of it slowing down. We're ranked 45th. I don't think I've ever heard Louisiana ranked higher than 49th in something in education. We're now ranked 45th on AP college credit attainment. And that's another thing that I would like to protect, but not just protect. If we can get to 45th in 6 years, I think we can get into the 30s in another 4 or 6 years.
But his opponents disagree. They say Louisiana remains nearly dead last in every educational category, and change is necessary to improve outcomes in the state. On another note, there will be a BESE Candidates Forum at Capitol Elementary School here in Baton Rouge Tuesday night, October 1st from 5 to 6:30.
Everybody loves their oysters if they can get them. Well, there's good news and bad news about our seafood industry. The good is that U.S. Commerce late Wednesday approved the governor's request for a federal fisheries disaster declaration. It means the state could qualify for millions in federal money after record flooding and high water decimated our billion-dollar seafood industry. The bad? Well, there are still more losses to add up from this year's haul, and what that will mean will be losses with fishermen, businesses, and our tourism industry.
Inside Heads and Tails restaurant and seafood shop in Baton Rouge, it's the routine start of another day. Even though veteran store manager Ryan Francis admits there's been nothing routine about the seafood business for almost a year now.
This is different than, what we really experienced in the past. But to have, sometimes you'll go through where shrimp are not running correct, right? So, and you find another distributor, but now, you really can't do that. If they're not good, they're not good.
What Francis says is different is how this year's flood event and all that fresh water from the Midwest impacted our seafood.
To have crabs and oysters be affected at the same time, okay, that's 2 items on a menu for our restaurant, or to sell at one time. Even our crawfish season was off. We sold a lot of crawfish, but the price was so high.
The water came earlier, rose faster and higher, and stayed longer than it ever had before. That meant fresh water loaded with fertilizer and manure overwhelmed the brackish water that's home to much of the seafood. Patrick Banks from Wildlife and Fisheries explains.
The estuary in Louisiana is used to a mix of fresh and salt water. A little bit of fresh water, a little bit of salt water mixes together, makes brackish water, and that's an estuary, and that's what grows the incredible oysters and shrimp that we have in this state.
And the out-of-whack levels of salt and fresh water became even more problematic, affecting a much larger area in the state of Mississippi when the Bonnie Carey Spillway opened, not once, but twice. Banks tells me Louisiana's oyster harvest is 70% below average this year, with some estimates even higher. Shrimp landings are down more than 60%, and blue crab landings are off 45%, and the final numbers are still being added up.
Well, the fishermen are hurting. We're hearing from them quite often that, we need some help. We can't make a living, we can't pay our bills.
And will this drive some of them out of business?
It very well could.
Another major downside of this far-reaching seafood tale involves the processing of it.
So when we have an issue with our fisheries in Louisiana, it's not just an impact to Louisiana, it's an impact to Mississippi as well as Alabama because of all the processing facilities that they have in those states that are dependent upon our fisheries resources.
A place like Heads and Tails is fortunate, though. What they offer customers is expansive.
We're not dependent just on one aspect of the seafood industry. And to stay viable, you have to do that. You can't really specialize. If this seafood market is all we had, we wouldn't be here talking.
For many fishermen, it is all they have, and many are barely surviving. And keep in mind, because of previous natural events and man-made ones, many were just getting by well before this epic year of high water.
We are a water state. We're born by water. We're used to dealing with the river and some of these flooding events. But when you have this kind of an extreme event, the impacts are far-reaching.
Of course, if you can get them, the crabs, the oysters, the prices are sky high right now. The floods basically wiped out Mississippi's and Alabama's seafood. Alabama actually canceled its oyster season, but those 2 states, along with Louisiana, will be in line for disaster relief.
A goal of the State Board of Regents' 2019 master plan is to dramatically improve the percentage of working age adults by the year 2030.
The state's community and technical colleges go after people who could see real-life benefits with some additional training. Here's how a similar program is putting people to work in Alaska.
I remember as a kid, my mom would find little radios and engines and stuff at garage sales that was already broke, and she'd bring it home and I would take it all apart just to see how it worked. I never thought that I was going to pursue it as a career. I thought it was just going to be a hobby for me. And I decided to come back to school. I got my associates in automotive technology. Right after I graduated, I already had a job. I was already working for a Chevy dealership. I got out of the industry for a little bit, and when my wife finally said, "You need to get back to work," I went out and put in applications at just about everywhere I could think of. And by the end of the week, I had 9 job offers with very good wages attached to them. And at that point, I kind of got to decide where I wanted to work. I was telling somebody today that I probably get 2 to 3 job offers per month on average of people wanting me to come work for them because it's an in-demand field. It's everywhere. It's more than just changing tires, just changing oil. It does come down to reading diagnostic codes, data communication, and very technical pathways.
I like to fix things, and I like to figure out how things work and why they work that way and how it could be better. I didn't actually know what I wanted to do for the longest time. I didn't decide till my senior year. Like, Riley, you're graduating in a month. What do you want to do with your life? And I'd much rather be in an engine than sitting at a desk.
I suggest to anybody wanting to get into a more technical field where you're both working with your hands and being able to use your brain a lot and being able to work on new technologies all the time, this is definitely a good way to go.
This segment is part of American Graduate Getting to Work, a public media initiative made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Learn what Louisiana and 14 other states are doing to help employ their citizens on Journey to Jobs. It airs Sunday, October 6th at 11 a.m. on LPB.
And everyone, that is our show for this week. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime, wherever you are, with our brand new app.
Download it for free from your app store. This upgraded version features news, public affairs, documentaries, how-tos, and many more programs. And please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
For all of us here at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Mora.
And I'm Natasha Williams. Thanks for watching.
Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Support comes from
Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.